Okay. All right. Any question on this one? Were you able to do at least this much? Okay. I'll take that as yes, no problems. All right. Now I'm just going to remove the HTML and CSS that I've added here. Okay. And I can just drag this all the way here, which means it's going to be hidden. It's not going to bother us. And I'm just going to drag this one console because all I need is console. And then I can clear the console by just clicking here, clear. Okay, so now we can start working in a JavaScript. Again, if you want to save this, save your progress, you can click on save here, right? And it saves your work. And you can label the work. Let's say if I want to say first, I can just click here and then say first JS code or something like whatever you want to name it, right? And you can change it as well. And this will be saved on your profile and you can look at it later. Okay, so console log is your friend. What does this do? Anytime you want to print something quickly to see what's happening, you take console log and then you pass string inside. And it could be any string, right? Right, and then you can see it prints it here. The only problem is as I'm typing it, just printing it. So one way to stop doing it, because I don't like it when I'm coding and it just keep printing and just too many things going on, right? So I usually go here in the settings and in the behavior tab, there is a second option called auto updating preview. I usually disable it. Okay, again, if you go to settings, behavior, and then the second tab, auto updating preview, and I would just save this, right? And now if I clear it, and let's say from blah, blah, I can say blah one, and it would not run it again automatically. If I want to run it, I have to click on here. There's this button here called run. And when I click on this button, and then it would run. So it runs on my command rather than just running every time I write something. Okay. So as I say, console log is your friend. Use it as much as possible whenever you need. Couple of things that you want to remember is if you write a line and you think that it doesn't make sense for right now, I don't want to delete this line, but I don't want to run it. So I can comment it, which means it's there, but it's not running, right? We just use double slash and it comments the line. Okay. And which means now if I clear it and run it, nothing would run, right? Because I commented it out. So this is how you can comment your line. Okay. Now let's start. Whenever you learn something, you start with a variable, right? Variables are heart of programming. You can hold the values. So let's understand how to define variables. In JavaScript, there are two ways. And again, JavaScript, if you go learn JavaScript outside, you'll find so much material with all kinds of things, and it's just confusing. So the JavaScript I'm going to teach you is all latest JavaScript, and make sure that whichever resource you go to, don't teach you old stuff, right? Because it will confuse you even further. Because JavaScript is an evolving language. It started in around, I think, 98 or 95 or something, and every year it updates itself with new features. And sometimes some features kind of go away, but it's still there because nothing in on the website, on the web world, disappears, right? The reason for that is, let's say if I build this function called say something. Okay, imagine this is a function that I build, and if I pass something, it says something, right? Now later on, somebody came in and say, oh, we don't want this way to do things, right? We cannot simply remove this because the website that are using this function should not be stopped working suddenly, right? So which means it should stay, the functionality should stay there. So which means there's tons of features that are no longer being used, but they are still there, right? But that doesn't mean that you should start using it. So that's why I'm focusing on all the latest features. If you see something that is kind of odd, let me know. I'll tell you whether it's old or new. You should only use the new stuff. So in terms of creating variable, there are multiple ways to do it, but I'm going to show you the best way on the modern way. So let's say you want to name variable where you want to hold your name. So you would say let name equal to let's say okay, and then you put some semicolon. So let's understand this. Let is a special word that lets you create variable. Name is the name of the variable, and then this is the value that it holds. So a little understanding of how it works in the programming world. On your computer, there's memory, and when I define let name equal to Hemel, what it does, it takes this value and puts it in a locker somewhere in the memory locker, and it has a key called this name, right? So anytime I want to grab this value, I have to use the key, which is this, right? So let's use this key. So if I say console log name, which means give me name, right? Name is a variable name, right? But I'm looking for the value. So it's going to go use this key to open the locker and grab the value, which is this, right? And it will pass in here, and then console log would just print it here in the console. So if I run this, sometimes it takes time, I would get the value, right? So this is the variable name, and this is the value. Everybody got it? Any question? This should be pretty simple. And remember, there are no dumb questions. If you are confused, please ask questions, right? Because if you don't ask questions, if you don't understand something, then you're kind of guessing, and that could be dangerous, right? If you don't understand something, if you move forward, then it's going to confuse you further. Okay, so this is defining variable. There's another way to define variable, which is called const. Think of pi. Pi is a constant, right? And it has a value called 3.14. Would I ever change pi to something else? No. Right? It's a constant. You don't want to modify it. You don't want to use the equal sign again. Right? So that's why I forgot the N here, const. That's why if you want to define variable that you don't want to change, you use const. So if I console log this, pi, obviously I want to clear it before I run it. Then I would get this too. Okay. Try this out. I'll give you a few minutes to try this out and see if it works for you, and let me know if you have any questions. All right. All right, so let's move to the next topic. Now that we know how to define variable, which is the most important part of programming, and then I can now print the value of that variable. Now let's understand what kind of different kind of things that I can hold inside. Name is a string, right? It has quotes around it. So strings have what? Quotes around it. Right? So that's the characteristic of string, which means you can put anything inside, right? A statement, I love you, or you can put 315, or you can put anything that you know, and then it's as long as you put quotes around it, it's a string. And a number, this is a number, right? What is the characteristic of a number? No quotes. It's a numerical value, right? They're numbers. I can't put like this, right? They're numbers. It could be a whole number or a floating point, which is 3.14 in the floating points. It could be a negative number, which is fine, right? But there are no quotes around it. It's a numerical value. So it's a number. What else can you do? Let's say if I want to say something is true or false. So is raining equal to false? I don't know where I am right now. I'm in San Jose and it's not raining right now. So I can say is raining equal to false. But once it starts raining, I can convert it. I can say it's true, right? So this is called Boolean. Boolean, obviously you're not going to see no quotes, right? Also not numerical. Has only two values. Two values. True or false. That's it. It cannot have any other values. It can be either true or false. So that's a Boolean. So again, we have a string, we have a number, and we have a Boolean. These are the three main types of variable or data types that you would need. There are others as well, but these three are most important. Unlike other languages, JavaScript is pretty simple, and there's not much. It's not very complex, if you will. I consider it as like more like a Play-Doh compared to Legos, right? JavaScript, you can do pretty much anything, and that's why it's very simple. What else you can do with it? There is a value which defines if I want a placeholder. Let's say I want to say nothing, or I can just say placeholder. I can call it null, which means it doesn't have any value. It's just empty. I'm keeping it as a placeholder. I may add some value later on. And so null is an empty value. It doesn't make sense. The empty value doesn't make sense. It's not a value, but we can call it an empty value, which means it's a placeholder. Okay. So these are the basic types. I can also call these types primitive types. Is that the right spelling? I don't know. But the primitive types are It's not prehistoric or anything, but they're simple. It holds one value, single value. There are data types that can hold more than one values. If I have a shopping list, right? It doesn't have only potatoes in it. It can have tomatoes, milk, lots of other stuff, right? So I cannot use string or number or Boolean to hold these values. So I would need something more complex. We're not going to worry about that right now, but I just want to know, I just wanted to tell you that there are more complex value out there that we'll learn later on. But right now, these are the main types of value that we want to focus on. Okay. Any question on this one? Okay, so I would suggest create a couple of these variables and then console log it and see how it works.
Can I ask one question, teacher?
Sure.
I couldn't find the wrong button.
Okay, so what you want to do is go to the settings and then click on the behavior tab and then disable the second option, which is auto.
Oh, okay, I got it.
And then save it. And once you do that, and then you have to clear the console before you can run it.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah, programming is all about practice. So more you code, more your brain gets tuned to that. Now, I've coded in JavaScript for so long, I don't even have to think. I can code in my sleep. You can wake me up from my sleep and ask me to code and I'll do it. I don't have to think about it twice, right? It's because I have so much practice. A lot of people say coding is hard. It's hard because you don't remember a lot of things. Every time you get stuck, you have to look at something, which you have to do in the beginning anyway. But once your short-term memory gets all the information, then it becomes very easy. So that's the stage you want to be. You want to code at least something every single day, so that it becomes a second nature. As I say, JavaScript is not that hard. Obviously, I can say that because I have a lot of practice. But the path that I'm going to take you is an easier path compared to if you go through any of these material that you would find. They'll just teach you thousands of different things with JavaScript, which probably are useless. What you want to do is straightforward path, which is create a variable, learn about the data types, and then there are some operators and stuff like that you learn, right? And then go through complex data types, and then some other stuff. And then that's all your JavaScript you need to learn, right? Before we delve into React and things like that. Because I'll tell you the truth, if you're not going to do server-side JavaScript, just learning pure JavaScript helps. Obviously, React is JavaScript syntax, but React doesn't use a lot of this stuff in JavaScript, right? So what you want to do is just learn just enough so you can do React coding, right? And then you don't want to, because there are a lot of things you're not going to do in your day-to-day life when you do JavaScript, because very few people code in pure JavaScript when it comes to UI programming, right? They use either Angular or React or Vue.js or some other framework, and React is one of the most famous framework, right? So I'm clearing a path for you, so you learn JavaScript just enough so you can do React, and then master React, and it's the simplest path possible. Okay, so I hope you guys have tried this and it works. So let's move to something else. Now I've defined this here, right? As I said, I can change my variable. So I have name here, right? And I want to change it because lets you create a variable that that can modify, that you can modify later on, right? So I'm gonna say name. Okay, I've changed something to this. Whatever I want to do, right?
Excuse me, sorry. I have a question. So if I want to like call two variables, I need to console log twice, or I can put them both in the same one?
Yes, it's a good question. Let's do that. Okay, you know what I'm going to do? Let's put all of them in one console. How about that? Okay, so I want to put name. I'm also just going to comment this out for now. I want to put all of these variables in a single console. I want to print all of them at the same time. So the way to do is console log, and I would say name, comma, hi, comma, is raining, comma, placeholder. And if I run this, I think I spelled is raining incorrectly. FYI, I'll make lots of spelling mistakes because I'm not an English major, but that's fine. But you can see it prints all of them at the same time.
Yeah, thank you.
Okay.
Cool.
So yeah, you don't have to print them separately. But yeah, that's an important question, right? These are the questions you want to ask when you're coding. Is this possible? Rather than just looking at what you're seeing, ask the question, can I do this? And I may be able to answer the question based on if it's possible or not, right? And the curiosity is very important. Okay, so getting back to this, right? I can change the name. So here the name is Hamil, and I change this to something else, right? And if I console log this now, let me comment this out as well and run this. It has changed its value. It's no longer this. If I caught it here right before it changes its name, it's going to be the original name because it goes line by line, right? I define the name, I'm printing it, then I redefine the name and I'm printing it. So the first one would print the original name and the second one would print the modified, right? Always clear it and run it because so that there's no residue from old, right? So this is how it works. So think in terms of line by line execution when when you're confused, and then it will clarify for you. Okay, so that's pretty simple. So any variable that you define with let keyword, you can modify. It's very simple. But if you have defined something with const like pi, I cannot change it. So if I say pi equal to cake, right? No pun intended. If I run this, it's going to complain. See, when it executes, it does go one by one. So up to here it has no problem, and this one it has no problem, right? It's here when it comes to this, so it's printing this fine, After that, it won't do anything. When it's once it has error, it just stops there, and then just say, hey, you have a problem here. And this is the type error, which means assignment to constant variable, which is it doesn't like you to assign value to already predefined variable with const, right? So you have to be careful what you define with const. When it comes to like arrays and things like that, that's a different story. It's you cannot use equal sign again with const. Okay, so that's all you have to remember. And these you can change as well, right? You can make this true. And you can even change the type. It's just funny. JavaScript is so weird language that I can, let's say name, I can make it a Boolean. Never do that, but I can make it Boolean by saying true, right? This was string, now I changed it to Boolean, which is, as you can see, there are no quotes around it, and it's true here. Let me clear run it so that we can see there are no errors, right? Which is really funny. But yeah, JavaScript lets you do that. And as I said, JavaScript is probably the most flexible language you would ever find. Okay, so we learned about how to define variable with let and const. We learned how to console log single variable. You can do multiple by providing commas. We learned 4 different types: strings, numbers, booleans, and null. And then we learned how to not assign a new value to const, right? So that's pretty much it for defining variable. There's not much to it. Okay. Next thing is, how do I know if something is what type it is? Just in case if you want to know, right? You can do console log, or let's create a new variable. Let type of name equal to, and the way you do it is called type of, and then pass the variable, and it will let you know what the type is. And if I take this and if I console log this, I would know what's the type of name. Obviously, I could have done it in a single line by just passing this into console, but I create an extra variable for it so you can see. Right? It tells me it's a string. So this is a very useful function that lets you know what is the type of my variable, right? If I pass a number, it will tell me number. If I pass null, I think null it says object, but don't worry about that. JavaScript is a little weird when it comes to consistency, but you just have to remember, just in case if you're in an interview, somebody asks you, what is the type of null? And you don't know, it's okay. It's not a big deal. There are a lot of weird people who would ask you weird questions in an interview, but there's no use for that. As long as you remember that there's a function where you can check the type, that's good enough. Okay, so you can try out by passing here, let's say, a number, right? So you know what? If I want to do this in one line, I'll just do everything else. Type of 1 is what? This is okay. It's a number. Type of true, which is a Boolean, right? So if I run this, I would get a Boolean. If I do again, remember I said null. What is the type of null? It's gonna say object. It's kind of weird, but that's the only thing you have to remember. Okay. String, Boolean, number, and null. Except the type of null is object. All right, so now you understand the type. Now let's look at how many of you already know about like a control statements, like you know, like if-else statement. Type in the comment area 1 if you haven't done any for loops or if-else statement and things like that. Okay, all right, so let's cover it. So a few people, so we're gonna cover it, right? So there are 2 things that you have to remember. Pretty much any programming, you learn how to define variable, you understand the types of variable, right? Now the next thing is to learn how to use them in multiple areas. One of the area is you can make decisions, right? Programming is all about decisions. When you go to your Facebook page, you know, Facebook shows you friends list, right? Sometimes it, you know, you can say, show me all the friends that doesn't like this movie or something like that, right? And it will go through some logic to figure that out, right? So one of the main thing you do in programming is make decisions. And in order to make decision, you need information, right? So one of my favorite example is, let's say you have some money. So I created a variable called money and I have $50. Okay. I need to buy a game console. And then the cost of that game, I'm going to call it game cost, is actually $250. Okay. And I only have $50, which means I can't really buy the game. So what am I going to do? So I need to know if I can buy this game. I mean, it's a simple logic. It's a no-brainer. I can just look at it and know. But if I have to tell the computer that to make the decision, can I buy this game or not? It has to make some decision. So there's something called if and else statement. So the way if statement works is you check the condition and it will return you true or false, right? And then based on that, you make the decision, right? So if I have to just simply write, if I have enough money, right, then I can buy the game. Right? Else, I would cry. Right? If you think of this way, right? This is a logic. If I have enough money, I can buy the game. Else, I can cry. I would cry. So how do you know if I have enough money? Simple. You already know the cost, right? Which is $250, right? If it's less than equal to the money I have. So I need to have more than the game, more the or equal to. I can have 250 or 251 or 252, right? So the game cost has to be less than equal to the money that I have. And then I can buy the game. Make sense? So this operator checks if the money I have is more than the game cost. So what I'll do here is I'll just wrap with this with a console log. And then put some quotes around it. Let's run this. Obviously, it would make a decision that I would need to cry because I have not enough. I don't have enough money. Right? So if else statement is a logical statement that checks the condition, and if the condition meets, then I will go in this area. If it doesn't meet, then I would go in this area. Right? Try this out. This is probably the most important. This and the one I'm going to teach you is probably the most important things to learn in programming. If you can make decisions, and if you can do something repeatedly, if you repeat something over and over using for loop, you probably have half the programming done. And then while you write this, see what condition, what you can change here. I cannot change the game cost, right? Because it's a fixed, but the money that I have, I can change. So how can I change the money so I can go inside this? I can print, I can buy the game. Let me know if you have any questions.
Can we do another example with names instead of numbers? Like how will that work with strings or other type of?
Yeah. It can work with the name as well. I'll show you. So with the number, you can compare the values, right? Something is less than something, right? But with the names, you have to compare, are they equal or not, right? So for example, with the money, I can say I don't have enough money, right? With let's say if I'm going from here to San Jose Airport, right? And I have a direction that I need to make a left on, let's say Montague Expressway. Okay. So I'm going, a street comes, if I see the streets and it says Meridian Avenue. So I'll compare, is Meridian Avenue equal to Montague Expressway? The answer is no, right? Which means I just keep going until I hit the Montague Expressway where they both match. And then I can make the left, right? So we can look at that kind of example too. So with number, you have to compare the value, like a greater or less, but with string has to be either they're matching or not, that's it.
I also thought about like a guest list, like if you have a name that matches the list or no. Is that possible with this too?
Guest list? Did you say guest list?
Yeah.
Okay. So if you are, let's say, bouncer at the club, right? And you have a list and somebody comes to the door and says, hey, I am Alina, let me in. So what are you gonna do? You're gonna take the name and you're gonna open your list, right? if I was a computer, what I would do is I would look at the first name. Is it matching Alina? No. I'm going to move to the next one. Is it matching Alina? I'm going to keep going. If I, at the end of the list, if I can match any of the name with Alina, then I won't let that person in, right? But as soon as I match it, I exit the program and say, okay, you go in, right? We can compare that logic in a minute.
Thank you.
But for that, as I said, there are two things, right? One is a logical statement like this, and the second is a for loop. For loop lets you do things, same things over and over. Right? So if I want to compare the list, right, I would have to go through the entire list one by one, right? So for that, I would need to repeat, right, the same thing over and over. And for that, I would need for loop. Yeah, so we're going to look at that next. And I can actually take the same example. Okay, so if I were to, print this, all I have to do is make this 250, right? If I make this 250 and run this, then it can say I can buy the game. Even if it's like a 251, I can still buy the game, right? Because I met the criteria. Anything over, it's fine, right? I can even have $1 zillion. Doesn't change the result. Right? I can still buy the game. So again, the Boolean helps you because it checks whether this is true or false. And if it's true, then it goes here. If it's false, it goes here. That's it. Now let's take the one example, right? So my name. Okay. And let's say there's only one guest name. Paul, for example, right? So I want to know if I can let this guy in, right? So what I would do, I would say if my name, now here I cannot do greater than less than, right? I have to say equal to. So for that, if you want to compare something, then I would have to use double equal, or there is a triple equal sign. It's kind of weird, but just bear with me here. So if I want to check, I would have to use triple equal sign. Why am I not using equal sign? Because equal means assignment. See, I'm assigning this value. I'm not comparing. So if I want to compare something, I would have to use more than one equal sign. And in the old JavaScript, there were 2 equal signs, but the new JavaScript is 3 equal signs. So always use 3 equal signs, right? Which means I'm comparing the value from right and left. If they are matching, then I'm going to go here, right? Which means please go in. If it doesn't match, go home, right? So in this case, what would happen? Anybody?
It will be go home.
Yeah, it will be go home because these two are different names, right? The only way to change it if my name is on the guest list, right? And then if I run this, then it would say, please go in. Even if I have like a small, like a space behind it or a front something, it's not going to let me in. Right? Because it's trying to match the whole thing. Okay. So this is a conditional statement. Okay, now let's look at the previous one. I wanted to show you, it's not only okay, let's say if I have $50, right? And then the cost is $250. It's not gonna let me buy, right? As we see it, if I run it, just say I would cry, it won't let me buy. But that should not let me stop from buying the game. So what I can do is I can ask my mom and I can say, hey, can I borrow some money? And if she gives me, if I'm behaving I have done my homework or whatnot, she can lend me the money, right? Rest of the money. So let's create happy mom. Let's say it's true, which means she will lend me some money. Okay. So I can change this logic a little bit. I can say, do I have enough money? Yes, then I'm just gonna buy. I'm just gonna buy the game. I can add another condition, else if, because that's not the only way, right? Else if I can check happy mom, or I can say mom gives me money, something like that. Okay, which makes more sense. Mom gives me the rest of the money, right? If that's the case, then I can also say console log. I can buy the game, right? Another trick is if you kind of get messy here, go on the right top and then just say format JavaScript, and it cleans it up properly. If I run this, it says I can buy the game. Let's differentiate this message. Thank you, mom. Right? So we would know which message is actually printing. Okay. So the logic is simple. It checks the money first. If I have enough money, then I'm just gonna go in and it doesn't checks the extra step. If I don't have enough money, then it goes here, else if, right? And if mom gives me the money and then I'm okay, I can buy it, and then it ends there. But if I don't have it, then I will cry. You can also add another step, else if dad gives me the money. Something like that, right? Right? And you can ask a neighbor as well if you want. So it should not stop you from getting the game, right? But you get the idea that when you make decision, there are multiple steps. There's not always Boolean, which means I can either go here or here. I can say, if it's, similarly, if you can think of this, right? If it's raining outside, I can go to work, but if I have umbrella. If it's raining outside and I have umbrella, but I have fever, I can't go, right? So there are a lot of different variables that would impact. Yeah, somebody raised the hand. Yep.
Yeah. How do you tell the computer like the mom gave them the money?
Okay, right. So this is a very important question, right? So either you create a logic that mom gave you the money, which is true. So it's a Boolean. So this, anything inside this if, it's just checking if it's true or false, right? Game cost is greater than and less than the money, it's just a true or false. So anything inside here is just true or false, right? This is true or false. And this already we defined as true, which means it's just checking true or false. If this is true, go in. If it's false, then check the next step. Is this true? Yes, go in. Is this false? Go the next. Is this true? Go in. Is this false? Go to the next step. Right? So these two are number, but we can convert it to true and false by comparing them. This is already true because we already defined true. Right? We can also make it true or false by saying borrowed from mom. Let's say she gave you $200, right? Then what you would do is you can take your money, so you can say game cost is less than equal to, and then what you can do is you can take the money you have plus the borrowed from mom. I think that's okay.
Mm-hmm.
So if I run this, then it would be, it will go here, right? Because it will compare 250 less than equal to 50 plus 250, right? This is another way to do, right? If I made this 199, it would not, right? Obviously, Dad hasn't given me money because I haven't defined it here, so it will just say I would cry, right? Right, it complains this doesn't exist, so I have to create it. So I would say let, and Dad refused to give me the money, which means false, right? In this case, I would basically stuck. I would be stuck because mom gave me money, but it's not enough. Now in this case, I can ask Dad for $1 and then I'll be fine. But you see the logic flow. It's basically you do something, you check something. If it's true, then you make the decision. Else, you check something else, you know, and else is like you exhausted all the options, and then this is the end result. Okay. So if and else is pretty much you're gonna use pretty much everywhere in your coding. Right, that's why it's important to understand that. All right. Any more question on if and else? Okay. All right. So the next topic we're going to cover is for loops. We are moving quite fast. Again, you know, when you go home, do some practice. I'll give you some homework next time. But if you save this, right, this pen, and then modify it and to play around with it, that would be great. Let's say you want to do something, repeat something over and over. it doesn't make sense to write the same code over and over, right? So let's say if I want to print 1, and I want to print 1 to 100, for example. I don't want to do this, right? Because it's kind of, this is to 100. If I have to do like million, right? I would spend my whole life just doing this, right? So it doesn't make sense. I should be able to, if I want to do something, same thing over and over with just a little bit variation, I should be able to do it with much ease. So there is something called for loops. So the syntax is pretty simple. If I want to do something, let's understand what I'm trying to do, right? If I want to print, I just use comment. So I want to print 1 to 100, right? So let's understand this, which means when I start with 1, right? End with 100, and every time increase by 1, right? That's what I actually mean. Right? So I want to start with 1, and then every time I want to increase by 1, so it becomes 2, and I want to print it, and then 3, and I want to stop when it's 100, right? So I can actually do this in a simple coding. So I would say for, let's start with 1, which means I have to define a variable. I'm just going to call it I equal to 1. So I started with 1, and then I'm going to put semicolon. Okay, then I'm going to end with 100, which means if I is either 100 or greater than 100, which means stop it, right? So I is greater than equal to 100. Why not only equal to 100, right? What if it skips over and then increments by 1 or something like that? Which is I want to stop all the possibility of any number coming after 100. Right? So we met the second criteria. And then the last criteria, increment by 1, which means every time I want to do I equal to I plus 1. Okay. And then in there, in between this curly brackets, I'm just going to console log I. And what it's going to do is it's going to do exactly what I told it to do, right? It's going to start with 1, and every time it will increment by 1, which means it'll just keep doing it, right? Until it reaches 100. So let's clear this and run this. Oh, my bad. While I is less than 5, it's not over, which means do this while until till it's 100, right? Which means I has to be less than 100 for this to execute, and then I run it. All right, you see it printed up to 100. Right? Let's try this out. So you have now learned 2 most important things in programming. You can define variable, you understand the control flow, and the for loop. 50% of your programming knowledge is this. Okay. Everything else is obviously, to support, to do other stuff, right? Let's everybody try this out. And let me know if you have any questions. Once you finish doing this, I want you to try a couple of more things. I want you to start with 1,000 and till it's 1,005, right? And every time increase by 2. Now you know the formula, I just have to plug it in, right? So this one would print what? 1,000, then 1,001. Oh, 1,002 because I said increment by 2, right? Then 1,004, and that's it, right? Because it won't print 5 because you increment by 2, and by the time it reaches 6, it's over anyway. So we'll just print 3 numbers. Any confusion, question on this one? Okay, so if I were to do this, right? I want to start with 1,000. So I'm just going to modify this with 1,000. I want to go until it's 1,005. Again, remember, in order for this to execute, this has to be true, which means I has to be less than 1,005, right? After that, it would stop. And I has to go I equal to I plus 2, right? Because I'm just gonna jump over every other number, right? I'm gonna clear this up and run this again. And I should only see 3 numbers: 1,000, 1,002, and 1,004. Right? So with these 3 things, I can pretty much do any pattern, right? I can do sequentially all the numbers, or I can skip over 1, 2, 5, whichever, how you want to do. Okay. What if I want to go reverse? I want to start from, let's say, 5, and I want to count back until it's 0. So I want to start from 5. Okay, so let me put it here. I want to start with 5. And I want to stop at 0, right? Now I'm going down, 5, 4. And every time I want to minus by 1, which means I'm going to get 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, and 0. How do I do this with this? if you don't do this right, this console will keep going forever. So be careful what you do here. Otherwise you have to open another code pen. You have to kill this and open another one. Because if this condition doesn't match, right, it can keep going forever. It's almost like I wanna go, let's say, from here to San Francisco, right? And I'm gonna take one step at a time. But if instead of going north, if I start going south, right, I will never reach San Francisco. Well, I could potentially because the Earth is round, right? But you know my point, right? So if you make a mistake here, you will never reach. You can just keep going forever. So let's start this, right? So I want to start from 5. This is pretty important. What is the condition I want to put that keeps me going? You know, I want to decrement by 1. So I want to subtract this by 1. So I have 5, right? The next number is going to be 5 minus 1, which is 4. And the next number is going to be 3. I want to stop when it's 0, which means I has to be greater than equal to 0, right? During the whole time. As soon as I become less than 0, which is minus 1, I have to stop. So instead of, remember, because we flipped, this has to be greater than 0. So this has to be true the whole time, right? So if you do opposite, you're gonna go in infinite loop, pretty much. And some of you probably already gone that way. Right. This is pretty important. So I would understand this thoroughly before moving forward, right? Because you're going to be doing a lot of things with the for loop. Any question on this one? Okay. So yeah, so you're close to 6. So that's about it. It's a first day. I don't want to load you with too many information, right? So we learn how to define variables. We learn about different data types, you know, string, Boolean, numbers, null. We look at some control statement using if and else, and then we looked at the for loop. I would say we are 50% there in learning JavaScript. Obviously, JavaScript is like a lot many things, but they're just not, I wouldn't say fluff, but you know, they're just supporting stuff, right? But in terms of core functionality, control flow and for loops are pretty important, right? You're gonna be using this everywhere, right? You're gonna either make decisions or repeat something. That's it. So any question before you go? All right. So yeah, that's it, folks. What I'll do is I will put this recording onto the Discord channel. There won't be any homework for tonight, but next class, because it's I think it's a long weekend anyway. So I want you guys to be relaxed. And then from next class, we'll do the homework for today's and the next topic. So next class we'll cover little complex data structure like arrays and objects. Okay. I would say about in 3 classes we can start building some sort of small JavaScript game. All right. I'm assuming that everybody registered here. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. think one person missing, but I think that's fine. I hope by next time everybody register with Discord so we can communicate. And there's actually a Discord app, phone app that you can download where so you can send a message, you can receive messages directly on your phone. So make sure you do that. So just in case if if you want to look at things on phone. So all right. All right, so that's it. If you don't have any further question, we will stop here, and I'll see you next Wednesday. Does Wednesday work for everybody, by the way?
Yes.
Okay.
It works for me.
All right. Cool. Okay, so yeah, that's it. I'll see you next Wednesday. Same time, 4 to 6. And again, I'll put information in Discord channel in terms of the Zoom link and Classroom. So just keep monitoring them. Okay.
Thank you. Bye.
Thank you. Bye-bye.
Thank you,
Bye.
Professor Hamill. Bye.